great opportunity for me.
Zinia, apologies for that technical difficulty.
She's back.
Zinia, we're so glad to have you back.
It told me that recording was in progress, and instead of pressing OK, I accidentally pressed leave. But yeah, so I think being on the exec board as documentation manager, that definitely has been helpful. It's taught me a lot about the important use of documentation, specifically in the medical field. So that's how I think it's definitely helped a lot with interviews and applying it to my roles.
Yeah, I will jump off of that a little bit and say basically the same thing as Zinia. It's helped a lot in me getting the roles that I've gotten, especially like internships and stuff like that. I feel like I was on a like CS more team, so like the suturing VR team, well, it like implemented a lot of skills that I feel like I didn't learn in school. So it's a project I could talk about past like the projects I did in classes and stuff, and that helped a lot when I was like going and interviewing, because people ask you a lot about like things on your resume, and Dream Team Engineering was a huge thing on there that I like spent a lot of time talking about. So yeah, if anyone's interviewing for internships or anything like that, would highly recommend talking about Dream Team Engineering. I feel like employers usually really like it because it does show that you go beyond like just your classes and learning in school and like apply it beyond that. And then also I would say kind of second Zinia on this too, but the people skills, like especially being on the exec board and being like a leader for people, I feel like that has transferred over a lot into, first of all, my internships and also my full-time job now, because having like soft skills, the communication skills, and being able to work in a team is obviously huge when you get into industry. And I've applied all of those here as well.
I'll say something really quick. As someone who's not going the engineering route, and I know some students in Dream Team Engineering are going the med route, or there was someone else who did the law route a while back. When you're applying to schools, even me applying to law school with an interest in like tech law and stuff like that, I referenced Dream Team Engineering a lot. That was really the main point of my personal statement and my involvement at UF. And I know that really pushed my application over, just the involvement in you're doing engineering things, but you're also helping people directly, which is something I think very unique to Dream Team, working with patients in that capacity. So if you're applying to schools and things like that, professional school, whatever route you're going with that, I think it's definitely something good to mention, and it definitely helped me out as well.
I can add something to that. A lot of the Dream Team teams have you practice skills that you wouldn't learn in class. So for example, for my cardiothoracic team, we did a lot of 3D printing. And you don't learn that in any, at least in mechanical engineering, you don't really learn that in class. And because of all the experience I gained with 3D printing through Dream Team, I was able to carry that into my job. And now at my manufacturing plant, I'm like the only one in the entire plant that has 3D printing experience, because a lot of the people I work with are like 100 years old and about to retire. And so the most basic 3D printing that I'm doing, just really easy stuff, and knowing how to kind of work with the printer and fix it and troubleshoot, it makes it like shoots me way up. And the amount of extra roles I've taken for the company rather than just like the level 1 manufacturing engineering job.
I'll also add something really short. So I wasn't part of exec board, but I was just part of cardiothoracic team, and just being part of that team, I used to work in like a lot of collaboration team environment, and that actually helped me gain that experience that I couldn't usually get from just taking normal courses, like even for like engineering design courses, because even with those you will be taking, sorry, something popped up on my computer. Because even with those courses, you will just be taking those courses with some people who are majoring the same field with you. But once you get in that team with DTE, then you'll get to work with like other MEs, electrical engineering majors or computer engineering majors. So you actually get that, you build that experience, which would be very crucial once you get into the industry.
Yeah, I could add something too. I'd say for me personally, Dream Team Engineering really reinforced the path I wanted to take. So I first entered college wanting to major in biomedical engineering, but You know, I never had the practical experience in biomedical engineering or what the career really entails. But Dream Team, it's kind of like a small company, and it gives you a taste of what it's like to be an engineer. And I think you could really apply a lot of the things you learned there at a larger company at Medtronic, for example. And Dream Team Engineering, there are so many people that pass through that are now in different roles across different countries and different companies. So I think there's a big network there that you guys could leverage, and I think that's a really big thing.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys for all of those insightful answers. Next up, we have a question directed towards people working at Medtronic, although I think that it could be potentially applicable to others from Mariangela. It's what do you like about working at Medtronic, and how applicable is your work versus what you learned in school / DTE?
Oh, okay, I can go. So I love Medtronic. I think it's a great company. I think that it provides a lot of opportunities for professional development and also just growth in different directions. Like I started as a product engineer and I've been working there for around 6 or 7 months, and now I'm moving to a different role in a different state. So I think that it offers a lot of opportunities for you to grow in the direction that you want to grow. So even if you start off and you're like, I'm not too sure this is the role for me, like there's always going to be those opportunities for you to network with other people and find other roles. So I think that that's a great thing about it. I think I would say that for me personally, I learned most of the things that I do in work on the job. So if you're worried about going into industry and you're thinking like, oh no, like I feel like my schoolwork didn't prepare me for this, I think that most of it you learn on the job. And when you're an entry-level engineer, your hiring managers understand that you may not know how to do everything. Specifically, I work on the launch of a new product within cardiac ablation solutions. So it just launched in Europe and it just got FDA approval. And so with that, it was a lot of learning just how new product launches work and how things like that work and all of the stuff that has to go into getting a product somewhere and getting it installed. And so that was not something that you learned in college. So I think that it definitely, I learned most of what I do on the job. But I do think that being involved in organizations like DTE definitely helps you with more of the industry side of things.
I'll also add on to that. So as I've already mentioned, Medtronic was the only company that I wanted to work at. That was because I attended a conference where I got to meet other engineers from Medtronic. And even though they didn't know me, they were very supportive of me. And from that, I was able to understand the working environment of Medtronic. And once I got hired, I was able to definitely feel what I expected. Like everyone was very supportive of you, even with the role that you're in. Also, since the company's, really large, there are a lot of medical devices that are related to the company. There's so many things that you can learn about because there's so many, a lot of things that are already built in the system, if that makes sense. So like, there are people who are working with the suppliers, working on manufacturing lines, working on quality management. There's so many different areas that, I feel like even though this has been about a year of me working at Medtronic, I still feel like I'm learning so much. So there are a lot of learning opportunities. And like what Zinia said, I definitely agree with her. People are going to be very supportive of you if you get curious with other roles, and you get to build a lot of connections with other people as well, because within the company, they have different groups, I would say, where like there are Hispanic groups or other groups, but they're not exclusive to those races, so that you can actually, attend a lot of events, like just for connecting with higher ups and other people in different roles and different departments. So that's the part that I love about that. Yeah, I'll just end it right there.
Yeah, I would have to echo what Zinnia and Julie have been saying. Medtronic is a huge company, 90,000 employees in 150 countries, and Medtronic itself, I would say how it's structured is you could think of maybe 10 to 20 different companies just under one name. So I would say that even if you apply to Medtronic and you get rejected, don't be discouraged. You probably just got unlucky with who was looking at your resume, what recruiter you got, what manager you got. So there's for sure a lot of opportunities there. And I would say that Dream Team, even though it didn't help me learn the technical skills that I need to do my job, I would say Dream Team really taught me a lot of soft skills, as everyone has been saying, that I really use on a day-to-day basis. For example, time management, um, how to get your point across, how to disagree, agree with people properly, how to bring together cross-functional teams, people of different disciplines under, the same roof so you know what you're talking about. And yeah, I think especially with Dream Team where you're combining like different disciplines into one room, you guys could learn a lot off of that, and it's really applicable when you're going into a company like Medtronic.
Sorry, I just realized I forgot to answer the second part of the question. So yeah, I definitely agree with Luke. Also, yeah, so like everything once you get the job, everything you're gonna learn like completely new, like in terms of technical things. But I would definitely say if you get to have that experience of learning about stats, I would highly suggest on that because I'm working as a manufacturing quality engineer, and as a quality engineer, stats is highly important. And even for manufacturing engineers, stats is really important. So, yeah, if you could get that experience, I would highly suggest getting involved in DTE.
Well, thank you guys for telling us a little bit about Medtronic and your experiences there so far. We have a question directed to Aeja next. Can you tell us a little bit more about your path to law and how that's influenced, how that's been influenced by your experiences in health and or engineering?
Yeah, definitely. I started off at the University of Florida thinking I was going to go the route to be a doctor, attend medical school, and COVID kind of hit, and when I was trying to explore both options, it was kind of difficult. I was really interested in Dream Team Engineering because of, the route of you're helping patients in that direct sense, which I think is really cool. And it really led me to go to the NIH in Maryland after graduation to just kind of explore if that is really something that I wanted to do with research and attending medical school. And I was there for a year. I did research at the National Institute on Aging. So I did research on neurodegenerative disorders. And I did a lot of AI research, which I really enjoy. And for a while, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I really felt the tug towards law, which I'm applying to schools now and sort of deciding between a lot of schools. But the route, I think, when I look back, makes a lot of sense. I know it might seem strange, I was working in science for so long, but I definitely do have an interest in like tech law and stated topics. And for me, working with Dream Team and having an abundance of knowledge in both science and engineering is something that I can definitely use to help me within my legal career if I decide to go, the tech or AI law is really big right now. I would say like the experiences that you have in Dream Team and in college itself, like it doesn't have to be a linear path. I thought that I had to do ABC and I would, figure it out. Sometimes it takes a little bit. But I will say that Dream Team was something that really helped me. And I still use a lot of the skills and soft skills we were talking about. I know a lot of people mentioned I work as a legal assistant right now, working at a law firm, drafting contracts and doing all of that. And I mean, working with teams and you're working on timelines that are really specific where people are running around telling you have to draft a 20-page document in the next hour. So working with Dream Team and having those soft skills helped a lot, but also just helped a lot in my interests where I might very much end up in the like tech company working counsel or something like that. So they're definitely skills that I will keep with me and just kind of expand on as I'm practicing law. But I think it definitely helps kind of push me forward in having like a background of a lot of science things and going in that route. So I hope that makes sense. If you need me to expand on something, let me know.
That totally makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing about your experience. Our next question is kind of for anyone who wants to answer, since you all have obviously been very successful with job and or internship interviews. Do you have any advice for students who are preparing for interviews in particular?
I can start off this one. One main thing is to make sure you know who you're interviewing for. So I would say do a lot of good background research on the company and what their values are, especially on your role. So I think a lot of interviews are obviously role specific. So like the exact job that you want, look at what the role entails, and then make sure you know a lot about it. So you're gonna probably be asked like both character questions and like technical questions. I know every job interview is different, but like for CS, I know you have two separate ones where it's like they just ask you personality or character questions, and the other ones like you actually code like while you're in the interview. So I would just make sure you like first of all prepare, know the values of the company very well, and like have coherent answers already written for questions that they may ask you. Just like anticipate things that they would ask, like what's your biggest weakness? Why do you want this job? Why do you want to work for this company? And just like know those basic things, because being prepared for that shows a lot about you. And then also Google is your best friend with looking up like questions that they may ask you, because a lot of times companies will ask you, like will ask the same candidates like the same questions, and people tend to post online a little bit. So I just do a little background research and you'd have a pretty good I think you'd be surprised with how many questions you can find online that will show up in the interview again.
I would like to add on to that as well. So this may sound weird, but be a stalker. So like not just about looking about the company, but actually stalk people, like see who's on the team that you're gonna have an interview with and see if you can reach out to that person and try to build that connection with them. Like even though they're not gonna be on the interview with you, but if you could give a good or leave a good impression to them, they might have a good conversation with their manager who's going to have an interview with you, and then that shows that you could actually merge into your team very smoothly, if that makes sense. Like you could be a good team member, showing your skills that you may not be able to tell or express during your interview. So I think that's a really important part, because like when I had my successful interviews, that's usually when I stalked people really hardcore. So like I was able to meet almost everyone on the team already, and by the time I had an interview with them, they were impressed by the proactiveness that I showed them. So I think that's an important part of an interview that you could do.
Yeah, I'll echo what Julie said. I'll give you a little tip on how to stalk them on LinkedIn too. So on LinkedIn, if you know your manager, you could go through their profile and see their replies, and usually you could find their past interns, and you could even reach out to them and contact their past interns. So that was one thing that tipped it over the edge for me when I got my Medtronic internship, was talking to all the past interns for that role, and the manager actually recognized all of them. So I think it shows that you put in the work, you put in the research, and your efforts will be rewarded. Another thing I would recommend is when you're interviewing, try to follow the STAR method. I think that was the one thing that was really emphasized when I was seeking feedback for interviews. And if your interview is virtual, then try to practice in front of a webcam as much as you can. Record yourself when you can and just play it back, just to make sure you look good, you sound good, and you're always looking at the camera. So, yeah.
I can sort of add on to that as well. For those who are into medical school interviews, I also got an internship at Medtronic as well. A lot of Medtronic people here. But one thing that when you look online, you'll always find STAR method, look up these questions, that question's very formal. But how I think I've succeeded in the interviews that I've succeeded in is by being passionate and sort of being myself. My Medtronic interviewer directly mentioned that during my internship. And she said that was the reason why I got the internship. And so Dream Team Engineering, you can use it as a vessel to showcase your passion for what you're doing. And I think that really comes across that you can't really fake. So just be genuine about it, show interest, do things you're interested in, and don't be afraid to showcase that passion, I guess.
Alrighty, thank you guys so much for all of that, advice regarding internships and jobs. I'm definitely going to personally use that stalking tip. I think it's really good advice. Okay, we're gonna divert a little bit. We have a question from one of our members, Lewis, directed at Juan. It's a multi-part question, so buckle up. So how did you break into the game design industry, and what was your resume like when you first started?
Hello. Okay. I'll answer the second part first. If you want to see my resume right now, it's on LinkedIn. So just find me on LinkedIn, add me. You can see it. It's like on there. It says Juan's resume. Can't miss it. How did I break into the game industry? Okay. I didn't really. Okay. When I graduated from my master's program, I applied to like a ton of game development positions, and like nobody was hiring. Like everybody told me, hey, we're like not hiring, and if we are hiring, we're hiring kind of more senior people. Just because they're at this moment at least, and hopefully this will change by the time spring rolls around. I mean, not spring, fall. We're in spring. Jesus, I haven't thought about like semester schedule in a while. By the time fall rolls around, late summer, hopefully that will not be the case anymore, and it'll be really easy to get a game dev job, especially entry level stuff. But as it was, like the guy told me, like a whole bunch of the guys who were interviewing me were like, yeah, look, you're great and you have a lot of the skills we're looking for, a lot of the cultural fit for the company, but we just don't have a position for like your level of experience. We need somebody with like 2-3 more years of experience. Somebody just messaged me on LinkedIn for the Dragon company that I'm working at, and they were like, hey, I saw a lot of the projects that you were posting. They look really awesome, and it's very similar to the kind of work that we want to do. Would you like to have a chat? And I said yes, and I was very suspicious because I was like, this feels very weird, and who are you? But it turned out all right, and I'm working for them currently, so it worked out that way. So I guess that's how I broke into the game industry. Somebody popped into my DMs, and it worked. But to those ends, I guess like what I was doing that maybe even got me into that position in the first place was I was posting on LinkedIn a lot. A lot of the projects that I was doing during my master's program, the stuff, yeah, just the stuff that I was doing. So do not be afraid to share your work. As a matter of fact, you need to share your work. Go off and show off your cool projects. You might not think they're cool, but if you're in Dream Team Engineering, the projects that you're doing are awesome. So don't ever doubt that, and show off your personal projects and just be proud of it. And even if you don't think it's gonna, like, it's not so much about the likes and stuff. It's just that if somebody gets interested in you, they then have a place to go and see the kind of stuff that you do. Whereas, if you don't post it, then nobody can see it. So definitely go off and post your projects. Especially the stuff that you're doing at Dream Team. I mean, for me, the Dream Team stuff was absolutely huge. And especially in my work with UF, if I didn't have the Dream Team stuff, it wouldn't work, because if especially if you're in Sutreme VR team, Diabetes VR team, any of the VR teams at Dream Team, you're already kind of doing what I'm getting paid for right now. You're just volunteering to do it because you're working with the clients, which are UF personnel, UF staff, and you're creating things to help the university, to help Shans, and it's awesome. So share your work and hope a stranger slides into your DMs and offers you a job, and that's more or less pretty easy. Yeah.
Thanks, Juan. There's actually a third part to this question. I don't know if I even said this. It's Karina, and so I knew that you would want to answer this third part of the question. Do you have any advice for creating a personal website? Because I know yours is really good.
Oh boy. Hi, Karina. Message me. So when you're creating a personal website, go, like, again, it's all about sharing your work, showing who you are, and then you can just say, hey, I'm Juan Lam. Here's my domain. It's juanlam.com. Can't forget it. Having a place for people to go and discover more about you is like awesome, because it's just, I mean, otherwise it's easier to forget. And so go and make a personal website. When you're making a personal website, there is no right way. However it is that you feel you are best expressing yourself, that's the best way to do it. For some of you guys, it might be just going on WordPress, picking out a really nice template, and then using that. For me, it was hand programming it. I made my website from scratch, and I'm probably gonna do it again. Like my website's on its like third iteration. It's probably gonna go on my fourth. Some people like fix up cars and stuff. I fix up my website, and so that's helped me out a lot because it's unique, and so I really enjoy that. But you don't need to do that as long as you are showing off your work and putting out some information about you. Your personal website is perfect. It's yours. So that's a cool thing about a website. Highly recommend doing that. And if you want more information on like how I did mine and stuff, feel free to reach out. I did hand program it, so it's like old school HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript. A lot of you guys are doing technical stuff. Some of you guys might be computer science. If that's the case, make a website. Make a website, because especially if you're going to be doing like web apps and stuff for companies, you might as well practice by making your website. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it definitely does. Everybody go to juanlam.com. It's really cool.
Alllam.com.
Check it out. Thank you. Our next question is from Evan to Rohan. The question is, do you plan on focusing on the medical or engineering route in the future, or finding work that combines both of them?
Great question. Definitely combining both of them. There are a lot of different avenues that I don't think are very well, I guess, publicized or not known about very well in the medical space to be a clinician and be an engineer. Every single company or every single medical device project requires some sort of clinical input to give it some sort of inspiration. NMed, to give a little background, NMed, basically their goal is to breed physician innovators. You guys are in Dream Team Engineering. This is what I talked about a lot in my interviews, is when you go talk to physicians, or I hope some of you guys have the chance to talk to physicians or nurses or anyone in the healthcare field, you'll find so many things that they want to fix, so many ideas that they have. And so my goal long-term would be to, make some of those ideas a reality, solve some of those problems, maybe dabble in industry, dabble in research. I can go on forever, but definitely want to integrate both, and that's really my goal. That was my goal. That was what Dream Team Engineering taught me, that's what I wanted to do, is to combine those two. And that's in that intersection is where I felt really happy.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you do in the future, Rohan. We have a question for Justin now. Did your work on the cardiothoracic team in any way influence your decision or help you now that you're a lead coordinator for the Cardiac and Vascular Institute?
Yeah, so one of the most notable projects on the cardiothoracic team was this atrial septal defect model that we worked on, and it was on a real patient. So it was basically modeling this patient's heart, and it really helped me during that time to understand the heart anatomy and how it works. So I was really able to like transfer my knowledge over to my job and ask really good questions to my physicians that I worked for. And most of these guys are, interventional cardiologists. So they they take a lot of, cardiac anatomy into consideration. It's like their job to, fix coronary artery disease and other conditions and aortic valve disorders and stuff like that. So helping me, like, that knowledge from Dream Team and the cardiothoracic team helped me understand what I'm doing during my job, asking good questions, kind of being involved in that patient care, and also working as a team in Dream Team allowed me to kind of work with other medical companies, which the program I'm coordinating for now kind of dabbles between, blood pressure monitoring remotely for rural patients. And they can't really come into clinic all the time. They live like 2 hours away in the middle of Florida. And it's like, it's really hard for them to come to clinic and get checked up. So having this remote system, this blood pressure cuff that sends us readings, allows us to really get an insight of how they're feeling at home. And I kind of call them and check up on them, see how they're doing. So once I have the story and their blood pressure readings, I can kind of talk to the physician and kind of help with the process of healthcare, kind of speed things up. versus, coming into clinic every 3 months, 6 months, or a year, and then having to deal with all these problems at once. It's better to do all of this remotely and, get things fixed earlier. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. Our next question is for Armand. Can you tell us a little bit more about your current position and what your next steps are after you're done with the operational leadership program?
Sure. So my current position, I got it at a UF career fair, talking to a company called Danaher. It's a huge parent company, and I got recruited for the operational leadership program, which is a rotational program where you do 4 rotations. Each rotation is 6 months long within the operations field. So I got started, my first rotation, excuse me, was at Beckman Coulter down here in Miami. And so my first rotational position was a process engineer, making manufacturing processes more efficient. I worked out for 6 months, and now I'm at the same location doing my second rotation, which is quality manufacturing engineering, investigating quality defects on the line, investigating nonconformances, fixing the issues for the operators if they have issues, contacting the suppliers, getting things sorted out like that. After this rotation is up, kind of around June, July, I'll be going to a different site within the Danaher parent company. Doesn't have to be a Beckman. So that means there's like sites all over the US and some sites internationally that I could also go to for my next 2 rotations. My next one being materials planner, which has to do with acquiring materials for the manufacturing process and planning out how they're going to be manufactured and when to deliver them to the customers on time. And then the final rotation is a production supervisor, where I'm actually in charge of operators on the floor building, all these medical devices that we're shipping out to hospitals and research labs across the world. The whole program is designed so you get a lot of cross-functional experience, and then afterwards you could go on to be a manager or production line supervisor or some sort like that, and it's a fast track to get you to those higher levels if you do well in the program and you grow your network, which is pretty easy to do since you're working with so many cross-functional teams. I know my company isn't the only company that has this type of rotational program. A lot of companies do. I think someone else mentioned that they were doing a rotation. I may have misheard that, but I know it's not super uncommon, especially in the manufacturing space, to get this type of advanced leadership kind of rotational position. So in terms of next steps, after I finish all 4 rotations, I definitely want to be an engineering manager or some type of other production supervisor of some sort. And what's cool is that my company offers master's to pay for master's programs if you're going to do something like that. So I'm thinking about getting an engineering master's or master's in business or something like that to grow my career and advance within the Danaher super company above the company that I'm working for right now. So I hope that kind of answered the question about what an operational leadership, what I do, my rotations, and my next step.
Yeah, no, it definitely answers the question. And it seems like you have a lot of exciting avenues that you can go into. So hopefully you find something that you really like. So our next question is general. It's to the entire panel. So feel free to jump in if you want. It's from Utsav. What is something you wish you learned in college before ending up in your respective careers?
I have something just general. Can you hear me okay, by the way? My AirPods like disconnected. Okay, cool. It happened this week for me. I applied to some schools that I really just didn't think I'd get into and ended up getting into. And my point saying that is I know when you're in the college sphere, it's super easy to be incredibly hard on yourself and to sit in Marston and think oh my God, I did really bad on this one test. It's over. I'm not going to do anything. I was really hard on myself all throughout college. And I mean, in some ways it is good to be hard on yourself in some capacity to kind of, bring yourself forward. But I think it's very important to know the work that you're putting in it might not always you get that A or get that grade, but I mean it pays off. And just know like it's okay, like relax sometimes, like it's okay to just know like it's gonna work out. I mean, obviously put in the work and you have to, but you know, you're gonna look back at some point and know that like everything that you did throughout college and all those moments that you were stressing out, it works out in the end.
I have an anti-answer to this question. To talk about stuff that I did learn specifically in Dream Team that I didn't learn in school, but that did help me like where I'm at now. Specifically, I mean I'm doing game development, and for the VR teams we worked in a game engine. Those were skills, really, really, really important skills that you can only learn through doing projects. And so having the opportunity to work within two teams on those projects was something that if I only did school stuff, I would not have been afforded. So being in Dream Team Engineering and doing these projects is really, really good. Because again, it gives you these skills that the only way to learn them otherwise is like by putting in your own time to do so. And so that'll get you a year, 2 years extra experience that others, you're working kind of against when you're in the job pool won't. So that's really, really, important and good. Um, Aside from that, a lot of the soft skills, somebody said Dream Team is a lot like running a small company or like a small company, and that is very true. Um, Working with clients, the doctors at Shands who are going to kind of benefit from the work that you guys are doing. That's kind of how it is just right now for me, in both roles that I'm in. And that's really, really important. Uh, Other stuff that I didn't learn in school that I wish I did, math. I was an English major, so I didn't get math, but I'm a programmer now, and I wish I did math, but that's okay. So do that, and just a lot of the things that you're just not going to learn at school. You just have to do it on your own and experiment, and yeah, talk to clients, figure it out, talk to people. Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that you guys are already doing, just by being a dream team, you're doing all right. So don't, like Aeja said, don't be too hard on yourselves because it'll be okay.
All right, something I wish I learned in college before joining the workforce was how to get up early in the morning. It is so difficult for me to get to work on time. I'm late most days out of the week, which is so bad. Just because my factory starts really early at like 6 a.m. But if I was able to do that, to practice that in college and like get down into a routine, it would have been easier for me to, you know, do that effectively now that I'm working and have to get up super early every day. So don't take afternoon classes. Sign up. Don't be afraid to sign up for that 7:45 session.
Oh, sorry, you can
Go
go.
ahead, Zinia.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say that I wish I learned more Excel. Like I went into the workforce thinking I was proficient in Excel. I was like, I interviewed for my internship. I was like, yeah, I'm an Excel master, but I was not an Excel master. There's a lot of little things in Excel and like so many different tools. So I wish that I kind of had taken a class on that or just had like some type of experience where I looked more into the different things you can do with Excel, because I feel like that's something that's really useful. Also, like when you're on a team and they're looking for a new way to do things, if you know how to use Excel, you can kind of apply that because there's always a different way to do something with Excel. So I wish I learned more Excel during college. And also I wish I took a financial literacy class because managing your finances is difficult, and so is doing taxes. But that's a different different issue. But yeah, definitely if you have like a free elective, which I'm sure most of you probably don't since you're engineering students, but if you can take a financial literacy class, you should definitely take one because it is difficult.
So I would like to add two things. So one of them is something that I actually learned in college, but like not from classes or anything, and that was like in the later college career. So that is learning about different opportunities to make connections. So like while I was in college until like my senior year, I didn't know about conferences that you can attend to, like SHEP conference, SWE. I think there's like more, but those are like the two major ones that I know about. And if you're interested in like medical device companies, especially Medtronic sponsors both of those conferences. And that's where I really got to make meaningful connections with engineers from Medtronic. So I would say that, you know, if you could definitely try to attend those events and you'll actually get to, you know, make some fruitful experience out of that. The other one is that I wish that I knew how to search about or learn about different roles within medical device industries. Because like now that I got the job like within the industry, I realized that I really didn't know very well about it. And then now it makes sense to me about like how you can reach out to people and ask them about the roles just to learn about their roles. Like you can easily do that on LinkedIn, and I didn't know about that, and I wish I knew how to do that. And one suggestion that I could give is that I feel like different companies would use different type of software per role, but at least for Medtronic, Minitab is a huge thing, like what I mentioned about stats. And I didn't know about that. And now what I realized is that you can actually learn what role specifically requires, like what kind of important skills each role requires by going onto their job website. Look up specific roles that you want and then compare different job applications, and each of the application they will say about like what role they require, you know, like preferences, and under that you will see like Lean Six Sigma or like Minitab skills and all that. See what kind of skills overlap between those job applications, and you know that could give you a hint of, you know, what software, what skills would be important for the role that you are interested in.
All right, thank you all for the great advice.
I could add one thing here real quick. Something I just remembered is yeah, sorry to interrupt. Practice confrontation. That is one thing I kind of avoided in college, even as like my leadership roles, you know, DTE and other teams. Confrontation is hard, and in a workplace it's unavoidable, and like hard conversations need to happen. Practice ahead of time so you're not like, you know, your voice isn't breaking up and everything and that, and you're like shaking when you have to do it in the workplace, because I've been there and it's not easy. So if you're in a leadership position, which I highly recommend doing in college, the soft skills you get from that are you know, those will get you the jobs, but practice confrontation. It is super, super important. All right, sorry for interrupting again. You can go ahead.
Oh, you're good. So much wisdom being dropped in this panel right now. Wake up early, pay attention in calc, all this stuff. Really helpful. The next question is to Neeva specifically from Harshil. Can you give an insight on the work culture and company culture at Microsoft? Do you think it's easy to fit in and do well in your role?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one reason I also chose to work at Microsoft, because I'd interned there one summer before, and to be fair, I'd only interned at one other place previous to that. And I just thought that the work environment at Microsoft is really, really good. They really value like health and wellness for their employees over like every other thing. Like it's not like you're working 24/7. Armand, I know you said you have to like wake up early every day, and that's something I was really scared about. And I tried in the beginning, so I was like, I gotta set a good example, like be a good employee. So I tried to do the whole like 9 to 5, and like me personally, I'm not a morning person, so I just couldn't do it. And like they're very flexible with working hours, so I honestly like wake up later, start work at like 10, sometimes 11 if I'm really not feeling it. Like, and they're totally fine with that as long as you like get the work done and do it at your own pace. It's totally fine. So like company culture wise, I think it's really good. They also give you just like other benefits that I feel like some other companies aren't as lenient with. For example, like unlimited PTO is a big one for me. So that is always really nice. And I think that just goes to show also like they care a lot about like your well-being in general. What is there a second part of the question? Are you asked about company culture?
I think it was like, do you find it easy or hard to fit in, succeed in your role, that kind of stuff?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I would also say part of the company culture is like the people, obviously. Everyone has been really welcoming. So I worked on 2 different teams so far, one that I interned on last summer, and then I'm on a different one when I joined full-time in August. And both teams have been very, very welcoming. Like everyone is like, if you reach out to quite literally anyone on the team, someone I like haven't ever talked to before in person, if I just message them, they'll usually be willing to like hop on a call and talk to me. And once again, like internal networking is a huge thing, and like everyone is really willing to share their experiences and just help you out. So I've found it to be really nice overall. I would say people are welcoming, and it is really easy to fit in and ask questions. And like there's no or like I haven't felt like any of the questions I ask are like stupid, or people are like, oh, why are you asking me that? You know, like people are very willing to just like help you out and be there for you. So I do enjoy it.
That's awesome. Great to hear you're having such a positive experience. Alrighty, our next question is for Rohan and Aeja. Can you guys tell us a little bit about your experiences as NIH fellows? What kind of research/work did you do in that role?
I guess I can go first. Okay, so NIH I thought was a great experience overall. I sort of a little bit about my research. I studied age-related macular degeneration, which is a retinal disease. That's the back of your eye that's really photosensitive to light. In that disease, your retina basically degenerates, and I was evaluating models in preclinical research and therapies in preclinical research for that disease. That's probably a little more detail than you need to know. But I think the NIH, I've talked to actually a couple of Dream Team engineering members on NIH. A lot of people do research during their gap year, but the thing that, in my opinion, that sets NIH apart, and there are other programs like this as well, is that you are treated like a student. So you're not there just to do a job. Opportunities are forced on you. If you want to apply to med school or law school or any other professional school, they will support you in that. And everything is geared towards your development. So I felt that whenever I worked in the biggest building in NIH, the clinical center. Every time I walked into there, I was learning something new. I was being spoken to by someone that was insane. I've seen Dr. Fauci a couple of times. My lab was awesome, very supportive. Of course, this is all PI dependent. I can talk more about this later if anyone has any questions or anyone wants to contact me directly. But I thought that aside from research, I had a lot of opportunity to grow as a human being, grow as a researcher, and grow as an applicant. For example, they have a whole, I guess, mini university in NIH for NIH employees, and labs have funding to send their lab members to learn different skills or take different classes. So I took a Python class. I took a biochem class when I was studying for the MCAT. They have poster sessions where they basically force you to do a poster. If you're working as a tech at any other academic institution, getting a poster is a privilege. At the NIH, it was like, you need to do it. This is good for you, all that stuff. So that's my 2 cents on it. I could talk forever again. So if you guys want to ever reach out to me, my LinkedIn or my phone number, email, anything, please feel free to do so. I don't know if anyone's here has reached out to me, but I've talked to a lot of people already.
Yeah, to add on to that, Rohan actually was someone who encouraged me to apply, and it was so helpful. So thank you for that, Rohan. I did social neuroscience and behavioral neuroscience work, but I actually ended up doing a lot of AI research. That was what my research was in when I was undergrad. So I just had a lot of knowledge in that, as well as a lot of engineering experience with Dream Team that really transferred over to a lot of the models and computer stuff that they had going on. One of the really nice things, and Rohan mentioned it, but I'll just kind of expand on it a little bit. There's an abundance of resources. There are so many learning opportunities. If you have an interest and want to learn more about something, they're going to point you to somebody. There's so many seminars going on, so many workshops. You're literally like talking to leading researchers in whatever area that you're interested in, whether it's what you're working in directly or not. You can meet with those people very easily. I did it a lot of times. It's just a place where, and Rohan even said it too, you're not expected to know everything. You are very much expected to be learning on the site. I think that's a really good environment to be in when you're in your gap year and you're researching. you want to see what you're interested in. And, maybe you're looking at an MD PhD program, or, you want to be doing research, in med school. They also have so much money and they're very receptive to ideas. I brought up a couple of things to my lab, and government funded. They had a lot of money to kind of explore different avenues for research projects and experiments. So it's definitely a very good environment to be in. Even though I'm not going that route, I learned so much and I made so many connections. People are very nice. They're willing to help you with anything. They're willing to stay and teach you different techniques. There were even labs that I was interested in what they were doing, but I wasn't directly affiliated with them. I wanted to learn certain wet lab techniques that my lab wasn't using, and they let me just go to their floor and, work with their PIs. So there's a lot of room to grow, a room to learn, and just get a lot of hands-on experience, but also just working with people who are very knowledgeable and, very willing to share that knowledge with you. So I definitely recommend it. I worked at the Baltimore location, so if there's any questions about, what's going on within the neuroscience labs, I know a lot of people who are still there. I can very easily connect you to people if you're interested in that route. So, feel free to reach out to me too.
Thank you both. That sounds like such a great experience with a lot of opportunity for growth. You're making me feel like I should have applied for that, honestly. The next question is for anyone who wants to pop in and answer. This is from Max. What would be the best way to set myself up for a position at your company? Good question. It's a thinker. Don't be shy. Stumps the panel. They have no idea.
I guess I can hop in here. Oh, you go, because I was gonna make something up. You go, Neeva.
So true. I feel like this is something I already mentioned before, but it's like to set yourself up to be successful at a company, know what they stand for and what they do very well, like know their values, know what they want. Like, sure, make sure you're a good fit for it also. Like, just make sure that it aligns with what you want. But if you are trying to set yourself up for, like, if you're asking, like, how do I set myself up for your company? Like, I'd just be like, know what they do very well and like know the position very well. And like honestly cater your resume and things that you do to like what you think an employee there would be like.
I think something that also helps is like when you're in an interview to make it seem like this is the company for me, like this is the company I want to work for, because if they see that you're really passionate about, for example, working at Medtronic, you're like, I really only want to work at Medtronic, like you're showing your passion for the values, as Neeva said, that the company stands for, then like they kind of see like that you're not someone who's like applying to, even though you may be applying to just multiple jobs at different companies to get a job, it makes it seem like you're like very passionate about working at that company in specific.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Armand.
All right, I could add on to that something that's not made up. So my company, at least, the culture is that for like a level 1 or an internship position. Speaking of which, we have a lot of internships open. So go on beckmanculture.com and go to careers. Samantha will send you the info. I'll send it to her. But my company expects level 1s and interns to have no knowledge, like no experience coming in, like it expects you to not know how to do absolutely anything. What they really look for is people who are self-motivated and passionate. So going back to, what you guys just heard is that as long as you show your passion and you show that you're self-driven, that goes a super long way in my company.
Yeah, I would say something similar for Medtronic too. Just based on my experience with a couple managers here at Medtronic, for engineer 1 roles and interns, they're mainly looking for whether you're passionate or not, whether you're willing to learn, and whether your career goals align with the company. So one thing I would say is look up whatever company you're interested in. They should have a mission statement somewhere, their personal values. I would say memorize that to a T and bring it up during the interview and kind of correlate to how that aligns with your passions, your career, and I think that will do a really good job of expressing how much you want the position.
I just want to add a little bit more detail onto that. So instead of just generally knowing about the company, I would say like at least try to learn more specific about maybe like specific devices that you're really interested in, or if you do have an interview, you know, look up what kind of products they manufacture or work on, and then you know in detail about it. Because one of the managers who told me is that one of the most memorable interviews that he had was with this interviewee who just talked about this specific device and was like, I loved it so much, blah blah blah, showing how you know, passionate you are about that. That really gives a really good impression on the interviewers.
Yeah, and I would say networking is really, really important. Just knowing some managers, the first thing they would do is they would go to their team and they're going to ask their team, like, is there anyone you want to refer to this role before they even post it onto the main website? So if you have someone like already in the company and you could get like a little name drop in there, then I would say you're already 1 foot into the door.
Sorry, one more thing. This is more like a tip for an interview. So you know how when they ask you questions, you just answer them, but instead of that, make it like a conversation. So like ask them questions back while you're, you know, giving your stories. So like, you know, like, do you know about this? Like blah 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 blah. Like, have you heard about that? Blah 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 blah. You know, like make it like a normal conversation. That would help a lot.
Just to add on to that a little bit, I know this doesn't really go with the question as much, but jumping on to what Julie said, I think the conversational thing is huge. If you can like make the interview seem like at ease, like it's also like be confident when you're in an interview. Like if you're just think about what the interviewer would want to see. Like if you were interviewing someone else, you'd want someone that's like passionate, confident, like knows their worth and skills and like what they have to offer the company, and just embody all of those things when you're there also. So like make it easy, be confident about yourself, and like you'll probably do fine.
Alrighty, thank you guys. I feel ready to go smash a future interview I don't even have. Wow. Alrighty, so we have one more general question for you guys, and then we're gonna open up the floor to any questions in person. So the question is there a moment in college that defined what you wanted to do professionally?
I've got one. I'm a little bit distant from that moment, but so I wasn't in college, but I was it was during college. I went to Disney with my girlfriend and her sister, Annabella, who was captain of Diabetes VR, and I went to Disney and we were in Hollywood Studios. And I was like contemplating life choices because it was my senior year. And I was like, well, I'm not ready to like go and be an adult. And I also didn't know if I wanted to continue doing like English-based stuff. I mean, I love writing and I still do it, but I didn't want to go into academia. That was my original plan, but I was like, I really enjoyed building stuff in Dream Team, and then working with Unity and all, you know, all that stuff. And so I was in Hollywood Studios and I was in Mickey's Runaway Rail ride, and it was so awesome that I was like, I have to do this because the just everything, the like the coordination between the light projectors and the music and just the scenery, it was beautiful, and I like really I deeply enjoyed that. And I realized then I like what I really truly enjoy is making things, and the heart of what I enjoyed doing as an English major was stories. Like that's what I cared about, was the literature itself. And so if I could use any of the skills that I'd learned in Dream Team and on my own, making games and using Unity to do stories, like, you know, Mickey's Runaway Rail ride, that would be sort of a dream come true. And so then I was like, well, it's time to get a master's. And so here I am. So that's my advice. Go get a master's. Just kidding. Or not. I don't know if it feels right. But yeah, that was kind of the moment where I was like, oh, I need a little bit more time to learn some more of the stuff that I need to learn in order to go on and do the stuff that I want to do. And that's all college really is. So use it. Use the fact that you're in university to learn the stuff that you want to learn to set yourself up for the future that you want to have. or even the ones that you're not sure you want to have, but you might have. And so you prepare yourself for that. And specifically with Dream Team, I mean, really own those projects. Like use the projects that you're doing as an opportunity to really learn the skills that you want to learn and the things that you want to do. Because that's what I did, and it helped me out tremendously. So go and do that, and go to Disney or Universal. I'm not picky, but they've got a new park coming out in 2025, so maybe wait if you want to. I don't know, but go and do that, and yeah, that's me.
Solid advice. Anybody else want to jump in?
I can include something in there. So in college, I was kind of on the fence between, medicine or engineering. I wasn't too sure, but when I was in Dream Team, I really had the opportunity to not just make cool projects, but really, we had a couple opportunities where we kind of went to Shands Hospital and actually saw the patients that we were impacting and helping out. So I really that really solidified my decision to go into med by meeting these patients, understanding like the burden they're going through, all these different medical issues that they're having, and how we're helping them. So me being able to talk to them face to face and being on the forefront of helping their care and their treatment process, it kind of, that experience really helped me decide what I wanted to do, and kind of segued into my job now and kind of communicating with patients as well, to make their life better. That's it.
Hey, if nobody else has anything to add, we'll open it up to the floor for any questions. Just raise your hand if you have something. All right, I'll come around to Grace first and then you.
Could somebody walk us through a day in your life, like a typical day at work?
I'll do it. Time for my daily vlog moment. Basically for me, my work is pretty flexible with starting. Definitely not as flexible as Neeva's. I start at like 8:30 instead of 8. But I'll get to work at around 8:30. I like to do like a task list of everything that I need to get done for the day. And honestly, this is an interview tip. A lot of the times, like one of the questions that I've been asked in every interview I've had is, how do you prioritize your tasks? So I always do a task list and I rank it from like highest priority to least priority. But basically, I'll just go down that list, start working on the things I need to do. I'll have some meetings. I think that for me, as in industry, something that I've learned is that something always comes up, especially if you take on more of a manufacturing role. Like you can't plan out all of your tasks because something will come up that's higher priority. So I think that when those situations happen, it's important to be transparent with whoever it's affecting and say, oh, like this came up, so I might be later on something else. And I think that's something that's important in college as well. But basically I'll go through my tasks. If something comes up, I'll notify the appropriate people. And then it's a lot of, for me, I'm working on a new product launch. So specifically, it just launched in Europe. So I have a lot of meetings early in the morning with people in Europe. So that's cool because I get to like see how Europe works. Europe's definitely, they have a much more lenient work environment. Everyone's always on vacation. But yeah, so it's a lot of meetings for me when I'm in a role where you're working on a new product launch, and a lot of actually being in the lab and working on the product and figuring out how that stuff works. So, and then I go home, and that's basically it. After I go home, it's bedtime.
Wow, I feel like I was really there in your day with you, Zinia. Anybody else want to share?
I can share. I don't know if you could see all of our little videos at the top. And if you saw me laugh, it's because my days are never the same. And if you work in manufacturing, just like Zinia said, you know this. So I get in really early in the morning, and this always starts the same. The first thing I do is I report on the defects of yesterday. It's a quick 15-minute meeting. I'd say, this broke, this broke, this broke, this is what I'm doing about it. Don't worry, I got it handled. And then after that, I go onto the production floor and everyone's calling my name. It's, hey Armand, this test equipment broke in final test, and we're not gonna be able to get products out unless we figure out a different way to test this, or we fix the equipment, or we have to like replace something, and I'll go handle that, or get someone who can take care of it. And it's, oh my God, we're updating this procedure and we're implementing a new product, and then I'll have to update the procedure real quick or whatever it is throughout the day. So my days are crazy with different things breaking and different products coming in and all this stuff. So no 2 days are ever the same. So if you want a high-paced, exciting environment, if you don't want to sit at your desk, I would say go into manufacturing and not R&D. And kind of connecting back to an earlier statement, someone asked, what do you want to do? Or how do you know what you want to do once you left college? And this is kind of, I knew I didn't want to do R&D when I had an R&D internship, and I was just sitting at my desk all day long. And I was just like going through documentation on 2 monitors and watching a show on my 3rd monitor because I was so bored. And now I couldn't even imagine like picking up my phone during work because I'm always running around talking to different people, doing different things on the production floor. So that's my day. It goes by really fast because it's always super chaotic.
Sounds like fun. We have another question.
This question is meant for Neeva. I want some advice on joining a new team, particularly for my internship this summer. I want to know if there's any like tips or any like way to speed up the onboarding process, or just like introducing myself to the team.
Yeah, for sure. So, I guess when you first begin, one thing I would do is automatically go out and like do your best to meet every single person on the team. Usually teams aren't like ginormous, like 50 people, so you can go out and meet. It'll usually be like 7, 10, 15 people, and like set up coffee chats with them one-on-one, so you get to know like everyone's background story, where they're coming from, and people are really willing to do this. Even if you just set up like 30 minutes to talk to them, I think it's really beneficial to get like that one-on-one time with your teammates, because then you can also feel more comfortable reaching out to them and asking questions in the future if you've already like established that basis of like knowing them one-on-one. So definitely just introduce yourself. And then also second, my biggest thing is like ask questions is huge, because like to be completely honest, like you're not gonna know everything for sure when you walk in, and like you're gonna have a lot of questions about your project. I know sometimes we can get a little question shy, like that definitely happened to me too when I joined, but it's so much better to ask questions when you first join and like people are expecting you to not know everything than like 10 weeks in and then you're asking a question that you like still are confused about from week 2. So I'd say just like ask them all up front, even if it sounds like you're like, oh, this might be a dumb question, it's probably not, and like it's a totally valid thing to ask. But I would just ask them all early on as they come to you rather than waiting. But yeah. And then also just make networking calls. Like everyone's really like willing to network usually when you join an internship. So like set up that time, like coffee chats, just with like random people even you see like in your office. Or don't be afraid to go to some more senior people and ask them for coffee chats as well, because they're usually willing to. And it can be very beneficial for like, first of all, your knowledge on the company. Second of all, like your knowledge on your career growth in the future and like how they got there.
Thank you so much. That's such good advice, honestly. I feel like it's so good to know that no question is a dumb question, especially when you're in such a good environment for growth. So thank you. Any other questions? Lance, I'm coming to you. Up here.
Hello. Also, it's very, very good to see some of your faces. I haven't seen you guys in a while. It's very, very nice to see you. I know we've been talking a lot about professional networking, but I actually just kind of wanted to ask the softer question. I'm looking at the real world now, and it's very, very scary. I actually just wanted to ask, how was forming friendships? Like, how difficult was that? What did it look like for you? And how do you feel about it now?
I have something I guess I could share. When I moved to Maryland, I did not know a single person or know anybody even remotely nearby if it wasn't like 4 hours away. So I was kind of terrified. I met people through like NH a little bit, but I also actually met people like through like UF networks randomly. Like people would just kind of see like, oh, you're a mutual person I know who's kind of like in the area. So definitely like don't be afraid to kind of share your information around. you never know like what random alumni will, you know, kind of just send you a message. So I don't know, it's just something fun that happened to me.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly don't really have friends like in Minnesota because I just recently moved here, but get a cat. Like they will keep you company. I have a cat, so I feel like I don't feel like I need to go make friends because I have my cat with me, so that's all I need. But anyways, if you are looking to make friends, you're most of the time if you're in industry, there's like a young professionals group that you can join and they'll always have events going on. Or like there's Facebook groups like if you're in Minnesota, there's like a people in Minneapolis and like you can make friends that way. So there's definitely, and my apartment complex, for example, always has like social events and things like that. So there's definitely a lot of ways to make friends. I am in a run club. So if you have hobbies, like there's always a club in the area that you're in for your specific hobby. So like if there's like, you like reading, you could join a book club or something like that. So like, I think that going based off what you enjoy and then going from there and trying to find like a group of people who enjoy the same thing. But if not, get a cat.
Going off of that, if you can't get a cat and you want a temporary animal, Rover dog, like sign up for Rover to be a sitter. It's so much fun. I like dog sit all the time, cat sit, and it's a lot of fun. And then you have a little companion with you. But yeah, I would also just say, like going off of what Zinia said, like if you like other ways to find actual friends other than an animal, if you want one, is like if you just like find things that you enjoy, so, like sports and stuff. A lot of times, other people on your team will like sports too, or it doesn't even have to be on your team, but like other people in the city will obviously like doing the same things as you. And but like don't try and go fit into somewhere that like you don't actually like, and you probably not enjoy it and you won't find your people. So yeah, just go based on what you like. Like I think I found friends by just going to like this like same location, like even a coffee shop. I like met one of my friends from there, and it's just like going to the library and like doing things that I like to do. I usually meet people off of that.
All right, I'll move on to the next question. Thank you all for the really great answers. I think you were first, maybe? I don't know. You guys can fight.
Okay, so this one is for the people at Medtronic. Can you tell me a little bit about the company and what drew you to it? It seems huge, but I've never even heard of it, so I'm curious.
I guess I can start. So I actually met Medtronic at one of the career fairs that I went to, like a national one. And from that, like I knew about the company a little bit too, just based on just looking up like the biggest medical devices company in the world because, you know, I was ambitious. But um like after finally meeting the people, they were a lot less intimidating than I thought, and they were actually really passionate about what they do and they care about your career development. So I think that when people think of big companies like that, people think that they're going to be in the same role for like 2 to 3 years before you get a promotion or whatever. But I think Medtronic is a lot more fast paced than people think. And you're always going to have something to learn, um, like people to talk to. And, you know, everyone just really cares about developing yourself and what you want to do with your career.
So, I knew about Medtronic even before I got actually interested into the company. Just because like what Phuc said, you know, it's a big company. I heard a lot of great things about it from my friend. I don't know if he's actually right next to me on my screen, but so I heard a lot of great things about it already. And then, you know, they have a lot of supportive events, like even within, you know, like internally as well. So that's what got me interested in about. And then I attended a conference, like what I said already. And then by meeting engineers from the company, I was able to have an interview, which was a huge deal for me as an international student because throughout my whole college career, I applied to like more than 200 jobs and only got like 4 to 6 interview opportunities because of the sponsorship issues. But then every time whenever I had the phone interviews, I would ask them, hey, do you guys sponsor international students? And then they would just straight out say no, or like, oh, sorry, we didn't know about that. We will not be able to continue with the interviews. So I felt very down throughout that, that many experience. But then the very first time I had phone interview with Medtronic through SHEP conference, they were saying that we evaluate candidates by their talents, not by their identity. That's what really got, triggered me, because that was the first company that actually, said something that I really wanted to hear. And then by having that interview at the event, they actually had special events for people who had interviews with Medtronic. So like it was like this nice dinner event, get to meet with like VP. There was only one VP, but like there were a lot of other engineers and HRs as well. So like you would just eat dinner and then like have conversations with them, tell them what you're interested in. And from there, that's where I was able to make meaningful connections. So I was able to make meaningful connection with one of the engineers, or one of the managers, and one of the engineers. And after the event, I reached out to them and asked them, about so many things about Medtronic, like interview tips, and all that. And then from there on, they were willing to like even have meetings with me. One of them even gave me a template of the interview because they were so supportive of me. They were like, you got this, let's do this, like they even offered me for mock interviews and all that. So like I was able to understand, how supportive they are. So, and that was the very first time where a company did that for me. So that's why I had to go to Medtronic.
All right, thank you guys so much for sharing. I think we have a few more questions, actually a lot more questions.
Hello, I have a question. Was there a specific like event that you did or enjoyed in between your time in university and living life in the real world with a big adult job? Like, did you go to a concert or did you visit a place that you particularly enjoyed?
It's a fun question.
I went to the Eras tour and it was the best experience of my life. I'm a big Swiftie, so if anyone's a Swiftie, connect with me on LinkedIn. We can talk.
I'm messaging you right now.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I delayed my start date by a month so I could travel Asia for 2 months before I start. So I visited Vietnam, Japan, and Korea.
Yeah, I also did a bit of traveling before I started because I was like, you know what, while I have the time, like I'm gonna do it. So I took about 2 months to go through Europe and Asia also.
The pictures looked so fun.
So I got my job before I graduated in November. I graduated in December. I got my job in November, but the start date wasn't until June. So I had 6 months after I graduated to do whatever I wanted. And I lived the college life in Gainesville with all the pros and none of the cons. And that was really, really fun. And then I traveled through Europe for 2 weeks. And my time in Gainesville was wild. I would wake up, go to the gym, Uber for a few hours, and then I would just go out every night, rinse and repeat. And then by the time I started work, my liver was destroyed. But now I'm a responsible adult, so I got it all out of my system.
I did a lot of fun things, but one of the most memorable things that's related to my job was happy hour. We had a happy hour at Dave and Buster's, and apparently they have this event where like if you go in a group and then schedule that event, like they divide you up into subgroups, and then you actually get to play games each other. And then if you win, you get like coupons and all that. And then happy hour, free food, free drinks. So that was very fun for me.
Alrighty, so what I'm hearing is I need to make plans to travel to Europe after graduating. Do we have any more questions? Alrighty.
I was just wondering if looking back in your college careers, there's any like big things you wish you would not have spent time doing? It's kind of an open-ended question, but you know.
It looks
Can
like,
you repeat the question, please?
I was gonna say, it looks like the panel has no regrets, but I think he asked, is there anything that you wish you had not spent time doing in college?
Studying.
Sing out about grades.
I regret all the time that I did not spend going to farmers markets in Gainesville. Gainesville has crazy farmers market game. It's like I didn't believe it until like, oh my God, go use Facebook events. Gainesville is actually kind of cool. And I didn't get to really enjoy it until like my last year when I started going to like the farmers markets on like Mondays and Thursdays and Saturdays and maybe also Sundays, you know? It's like farmers markets are cool, man. I don't know what to tell you. They got great food. That's it. They got great food. I mean, what else do you need? So do that. So I regret any time that I spent not doing those things. And also like just the different events that Gainesville is a quirky city with cool music events and stuff. So go to that. Go to the High Dive. Go watch if the at High Dive if they're putting on like a production of like Drunk Shakespeare of any sort, go do that. It's awesome. It's really fun. So anytime that I did not spend doing those fun things and taking advantage of being in Gainesville, I regret that because I'm probably never gonna live there again. So so you're gonna miss it a little bit. Make sure you get the most you can out of it.
I regret ever missing any football game I've ever missed. Don't miss football games. Go to every Saturday in the swamp is magical. Definitely do that.
I wish I had done an internship while I was an undergrad student because my first internship was after graduation, which I am pre-med. So even if you are pre-med, I would recommend doing an internship while you're in undergrad because it's a cool way to apply the knowledge you learned in engineering. And you may change your mind and decide you want to work in engineering for a few years before going to med school or making that decision. So I think diversifying your portfolio as much as possible to like give you fallback options if you decide to change your mind on something.
Alrighty, well, we're gonna move on to another question, but Juan, I totally agree. And anybody sitting in the audience, if you haven't been to the Haley's Plantation Farmers Market on Saturdays, you should go.
Alrighty, so I have a question. I'm basically applying to med school this year, and that entails like a lot of overwhelming information, like trying to piece together all the hours and everything. And honestly, I kind of lost a year because I was lulled into finance my first year. And yeah, so I'm basically asking, in terms of the application, what do you think is like the most important thing? Like obviously personal statement, but like in terms of soft like recommendations, what would be the most important thing for that med school application?
I guess this is my department. I don't think that's a question that a lot of people ask, and I think unfortunately no one knows the answer to. Even if you ask program directors, they will like certain aspects of an application, and different program directors will value different things. What I like, what I found, what I like to say is that whatever you really enjoy the most, whatever you value the most, and whatever you can showcase the most is where is the best in my opinion, because then a program director will, if they value that, then your interests align with the program. So I had hundreds of like thousands of hours of research on my application, and I ended up in a program that values research. Every single program is going to want a diverse group of people. So whatever makes you unique and whatever that you can talk about the most is probably the best on that end. From an hours perspective, I think you mentioned hours and trying to piece that all together. I wouldn't worry about it too much. As long as you get a meaningful story out of it, that you could portray well, and that adds a dimension to your application that they may not have known, I think that's fine. Again, like I'm not an expert, and every program director that I've talked to had something different to say. Like if you had 200 hours of service versus 600 hours, I don't think anyone would care. As long as you have a story out of it, you know what I'm saying? So I think you mentioned that you had lost a year from finance. I wouldn't worry about that at all either. I think that just adds to your story. As long as you can, if you can talk about it, great. If you can't talk about it, that's also fine. Like there's so many different applicants in med school, so many different backgrounds that I wouldn't stress about it too much. As long as you have the basics and you can talk passionately about what you want to do, why you want to be a physician. And ultimately, they're looking for basic things and then things that make you unique. Basic things include, you know what being a physician means. So you have some clinical experience. You are okay and open to the idea of serving people for a lifetime. And that can be achieved in a variety of different ways, right? I talked to one of the admissions directors from UF Med School, and they really value service. And so if you can show how service will somehow lead to your ability to understand what the career is like, then I think you're on the right track. I know that was a little kind of long-winded answer, but the point is I don't really have a good answer, and I don't think many people do, unfortunately. But I think just be yourself. That's really cliche, but that's really what's going to stand out the most.
I'm not like in med or at all associated with med careers. However, I do want to jump off what Rohan said and point something out really important. Anything that you think is a flaw in like your story, your like career story, it's not. That's a feature, right? In game development, we say that is not a bug, that is a feature, and that is very much the case in your resume. Like Rohan said, it's like, well, make a story out of it, get a story out of it. That is so true, because oftentimes what you're working against is a lot of people who do have, like, let's say perfect resumes, quote unquote, because that doesn't exist. They're gonna be really boring. If you have some part of it that you think is a flaw, for example, you say I lost my first year in finance, you didn't lose your first year, change the narrative, right? You say I was in finance and then I discovered my passion for this, and said so much so that it completely changed my career track, and now I'm all in on like medicine. It's the same facts, just arranged. The way that you present it is different, and in that presentation there's a story instead of having like I lost a year and now I'm, I feel like I'm behind. You have a character arc in just the delivery of that. And so don't think that any kind of hiccup in your plans or any deviation from kind of the norm or what's supposed to happen is a flaw at all. Like I did English and now I'm making VR dragon game. That is like that's not a bug, it's a feature. So follow your path and like don't be afraid, own it, own your story, and just you're gonna do good, you're gonna do really good. Don't sweat it.
I have just a quick perspective to add to that, to what Juan said. I'm also not going the medical route, but I applied to law school in like a total medical package. I had been like prepping for med school, thinking I was going to go to med school, and I was really worried, kind of the opposite of what you're doing. I'm probably going more towards the financial path and you're going towards medicine. But I thought like, oh my God, I spent all this time doing research. Like I'm applying to these like, top 50 law schools. Like they're going to say no. Like there's no way that they're interested in someone who has done so much science work when, there are kids who've been working and doing like internships with Congress and doing all this crazy stuff. But even like talking to admissions, I had a meeting today with an admissions officer who actually was the person who read my application, ironically. And even told me like just hearing your story and where you come from and like where, what you've started with, but how you've come to this path is what matters. It's not about, oh, I was this perfect student that I had to be, the medical route from like year one. It's how you got to wanting to do what you're doing. So, maybe you started in finance. I really wouldn't be afraid to even mention like, you know what, I realized that I wanted to do something towards the medical route, and that's totally fine. I think that it's so easy to fixate on something and think like, oh, I lost all this time, but really that experience, like it sounds cliche, but led you to what you wanted to do. And that being medicine. I think that's awesome. And I think that really contributes to who you are as a person and who you're going to be as a professional and as a doctor. And I completely understand. I was in that boat thinking I had lost so much time with, thinking I was going to go med, and now I'm going the law school route. I think it really just contributes to who you are and just highlight, why you want to be a physician. And I think that it'll really be a good application, but just don't be hard on yourself for that year.
Thank you guys so much for that. If any of you are considering part-time advising, I think you should really go into that. UF needs more advisors like you guys. Do we have any other questions on the floor? No? Okay.
Hey, well, thank you all so much for your time. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your days, because I know you guys are all really busy people, to come help and provide your perspective. Yeah. And thanks for everyone for coming and listening. All right, I guess that's everything for the night. Anything else you want to add, Sam? Nope. All right. Well, have a good night. Hopefully we'll be talking to you soon. All right. Bye, guys. It all disappeared.
We're going into the void, guys. I'm sorry.
All right, thank